disciples in age and years with us. What I'm reading now from the book, The Empty Boat, the talks or the teachings of Chuang Tzu with comments by Rajneesh. In Japan, through Buddha, through Lao Tzu, and Chuang Tzu, a particular art has been developed called Zendo. Zendo means the Zen of the sword, the art of the warrior, and nobody knows it like they do. In Japan, through Buddha, Lao Tzu, and Chuang Tzu. The way they have developed it is supreme. It takes years, even a whole lifetime, to learn Zendo, because the learning consists in acceptance. You cannot accept in ordinary life. How can you accept when a warrior is standing before you waiting to kill you? How can you accept when the sword is raised against you? And every moment, any moment, death is near. The art of Zendo says that if you can accept the sword, accept the enemy, the one who is going to kill you, and there is no distrust, if even the enemy is the friend, and you are not afraid, you are not trembling, then you become a pillar of energy, unbreakable. The sword will break on you, but you cannot be broken. There will not even be any possibility that you could be destroyed. I forgot to ask if the group that's here with Dave Gottlieb and Karmananda, are you here? Virginia? Okay. Welcome with Dave, hello again. Well, with Karmananda not here, you exhausted him?
Yeah, he's thinking that.
This is a group that's here voluntarily, sleeping in a big tent so they can be work exchange. This group is preparing an organic vegetable garden here at the ashram. And they've already collected money, $1,500, to build a what kind of fence? A web fence, so that the deer who can jump 8 feet, 8 feet these deer can jump, won't be able to get to the vegetables before we do. So, and other things that crawl underneath. Dharmadev was praising you very much. He saw your work, and I thought of you because you're indomitable. These deer, these animals will not be able to break through. And if they do, you'll build a higher fence, I hope. So thank you very much. This is work that Virji wanted right from the beginning. He wanted an organic vegetable and fruit. So this is great work, and it's the Guru's work, making him happy, making us happy. So coming back. The art of Zendo says that if you can accept the sword, can accept the enemy, the one who is going to kill you, and there's no distrust, if even the enemy is the friend and you're not afraid, then you become a pillar of energy, unbreakable. They call that, with the shining monks, what? What do they call it? 3-letter word.
How?
Chi, they call it. That there's an energy field around you that prevents the swords from penetrating. And they show these incredible acts. I mentioned last week, they come once a year, usually to London, to perform and show you what they've accomplished as a result of their training from the age of 2.5 women. They are full-fledged Zendo masters. Now you'll hear a story. Once there was a great Zendo master. He was 80 years old, and traditionally, the disciple who could defeat him would succeed. So all the disciples hoped that someday he would accept their challenge, because now he was becoming quite old. There was one disciple who was the cleverest, the best strategist, very powerful, but he was not a master of Zendo, just skilled in the art. Although he was a good warrior and he knew about swordsmanship, he was not yet a pillar of energy. He was still afraid while fighting. The tatata had not yet happened to him. The tatata had not yet happened to him. Tatata is the acceptance, the letting go. He went to the master again and again, saying, "Now I think the time has come, and you are getting old. Soon you will be too old to challenge at all. So I challenge you now, while you are not too old. Accept my challenge, master, and give me a chance to show what I've learned from you." The master looked at him and laughed and avoided him. The disciples started thinking that the master became so weak and old that he was afraid, just trying to evade the challenge. So one night, he insisted and got angry and said, "I will not leave you until you accept my challenge. Tomorrow morning, you have to accept you are getting old." This is the disciple. You are getting old, and soon there will be no chance for me to show what I have learned from you. This has been a tradition, you know that. This is a tradition, always. The master said, "Well, if you insist, but you know, your very insistence shows that you're not ready. You're not prepared. There's too much excitement in you. Your ego is excited. It wants to challenge. You have not yet become capable. But if you insist, okay. However, do one thing. Go to the nearby monastery where there is a monk who was my disciple 10 years ago. He became so efficient in Zendo that he threw away his sword and became a renunciate, a sannyasa. He was actually my rightful successor. He never challenged me, and he was the only one who could have challenged me and even defeated me. So first go and challenge that monk. If you can defeat him, then come back to me. If you cannot defeat him, then please drop the idea." So the disciple immediately started out for the monastery. By morning he was there. And right away, he found the monk and challenged him. And he couldn't quite believe that this monk is a Zendo master because he was so skinny. He's so nothing. Continuously meditating, eating only once a day. It was all bones. But the monk listened, and he too laughed. And he said, "You've come to give me a challenge. Even your master cannot challenge me. Even he's afraid." This was too much. Listening to this, the master is a friend of me. The disciple was in a rage. He said, you stand up. You get up immediately. Here's a sword. I brought you a sword, knowing well that you're a monk and might not have one. Come on, come out in the garden. This is insulting. I will not listen to you. The monk looked absolutely undisturbed. He said, you're just a child. You're not a warrior. You're a child. You'll be killed immediately. Why are you asking for death unnecessarily? You're a child. Well, that made him more angry, being called a child by a skinny monk. The monk said, all right, but I won't need the sword. A real master never needs a sword. I'm not going to attack you. I'm only going to give you a chance to attack me, so your sword is broken. You're not a match for me. You're a child. And people will laugh at me if I take up a sword against you. It was too much. The young man jumped up. But then he was surprised because he saw that the monk also was standing. Up until now, the monk had been sitting. Now he stood up and he closed his eyes and started swaying from side to side. And suddenly, the young man saw that the monk had disappeared. There was only this pillar of energy, no face, just a solid pillar of energy swaying. He became afraid and started retreating, but the pillar of energy started moving towards him, continuing to sway. He threw away his sword and screamed at the top of his voice, "Save me!" The monk sat down again, started laughing. His face came back. The energy disappeared. And he said, I told you before, even your master is no match for me. Be sure to tell him that. Perspiring, trembling, nervous, the disciple went back to his master and said, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for your compassion towards me. I'm no match for you. Even that monk, that thin monk, destroyed me completely. But you see, Master, one thing I could not tolerate, that's why I became involved in it. He said, that monk said, even your master is not a match for me. The master started laughing, and he said, so that rascal played the trick on you too? You got angry? Then he could see through you, because anger is a hole in the being. And that has become his basic trick. Whenever I send somebody to him, he starts talking against me. And my disciples, of course, become furious, angry. And when they are angry, he finds out that they have loopholes. And when you have holes, you cannot find. That's the end of the story, but here is Osho's commentary for recognition. Whenever you are angry, your being has leakages. Whenever you desire, your being has holes in it. Whenever you are jealous or filled with hatred, sexuality, you're not a pillar of energy. Therefore, Buddhas have been teaching us to be desireless. Because whenever you are desireless, energy does not move outwards. Energy moves inwards. It becomes an inner circle. It becomes an electric field, a bioelectric field. When that field is there, without any leakage, you are a pillar. You cannot be defeated. But you're not thinking of victory, remember. Because if you are thinking of victory, you cannot be a pillar of energy. Then that desire for victory becomes a leakage. You are weak, not because others are strong. You are weak because you're filled with so many desires. You are defeated, not because others are more cunning, more clever. You are defeated because you have so many leakages. Tatata, acceptance. Total acceptance means no desire. Desire arises out of non-acceptance. Guruji would say often, especially to people who were saying, I'm lonely, there's nobody out there for me. I keep attracting the wrong people. He would say, because your energy is negative, your energy is dark, your energy is diminished. He said, I'm old, he says, meaning the body is old, I had a stroke, it's paralyzed. I have no trouble attracting people, the right people. Because people are magnetically drawn to that energy field. But the minute we, as he said, the minute we have our personal, private desires, we lose our power. That's what attracts people, our positive energy. We become a pillar of energy. He says, desire arises out of non-acceptance. You cannot accept a certain situation, so desire arises. You live in a hut, you cannot accept it. This is too much for your ego. You want a palace. Then you are a poor man, but not because you live in a hut, no. Because emperors have lived in huts. Great gurus have lived in huts. Buddha has lived under a tree, and he was not a poor man. You cannot find a richer man anywhere. No, it's not your hut that makes you poor. The moment you desire the palace, that's when you're a poor man. And you are not poor because others are living in palaces. You are poor because the desire to live in the palace creates a comparison with the hut. You become envious. You're poor. Whenever there is discontent, there is poverty. Whenever there is no discontent, you are rich. And you have such riches that no thief can steal them. You have such riches, no government can take them by taxation. You have riches which cannot be taken away from you in any way because you have a fort for your being that's unbreakable, impenetrable. Once a desire moves and your energy starts falling, you become weak through desire. You become weak through longing. Whenever you are not longing and are content, whenever nothing is moving, when your whole being is still, then, says Chuang Tzu, you are an impenetrable fort. Fire cannot burn you. Death is impossible. That's the meaning of fire cannot burn you. Death is impossible. You cannot die. That's straight out of the scriptures. You have the secret key of eternal life when your whole being is still. And sometimes this happens in ordinary circumstances too. A house is on fire. Everybody dies, but a small child survives. You've read of buildings crumbling, crushing everybody, and days, weeks later, they find a baby crying, right? A child crying. He says, that's no accident that a child survives a fire. The old people die, and the small children survive. People say that this is a miracle. It's God's grace. No, it's nothing of the sort. It is because the child accepted that situation. Those who were cunning started running. Clever people started running, started trying to save themselves, or save their money, or save their will, or save something that they thought they'd need later. They got themselves into trouble. The child took a rest. He wasn't even aware that anything was happening. He had no understanding that he might die. So the child was saved through his innocence. And it happens every day. Go and observe at night near a bar, a wine shop, that drunkards are falling down in the street. They just fall down. They're lying in the gutter, absolutely happy. Oh, they'll get up in the morning. They may be bruised a little, but no harm has happened to their bodies. Their bones are intact. They've got no fractures. Come to think of it, we see many drunkards lying on the streets of New York and attaining. I've never seen any bandages on them. They've never broken anything, apparently. And they're in the street quite happy. They must have fallen down at some point. You try to fall like a drunkard on the street, immediately you will have fractures. And he falls, a drunkard falls like this every day, every night, many times, but nothing happens to him. What is the matter? What is the secret? The secret is when a man, a woman is drunk, there's no desire. He's absolutely happy, at ease, right now. When he's drunk, the drunkard's not afraid. There is no fear. And when there is no fear, there's no cunningness. We need to be cunning and clever only when we're afraid. It's true, isn't it? Mm-hmm. That's the time our brain works overtime to save us. Cunningness comes out of fear. So the more fearful a person, the more cunningness you will find in him. A brave man is not cunning, because a brave man can depend on his bravery. But a man who is afraid, who is a coward, can depend only on cleverness, cunningness. The more inferior a person, the more cunning. The more superior a person, the more innocent. Cunningness is a substitute. When one is drunk, absolutely drunk, the future disappears and past disappears. Any questions at this point? Because that's the end of the reading. The only way to get something out of this reading so that you're changed, transformed, so that you're not weakened by desire, so you don't have loopholes, is to see where in your life this applies. When have the greatest feats of bravery been accomplished by you? When have you been most heroic? That's what you have to look at. And how easily we let bully us and cause leakages in us. When we are powerful, inherently we are powerful. Nobody can do it. You know, someone once asked, does that witnessing work when you're on your job? Like if you have a bully for a boss, if you have somebody who's bullying you and not accepting that you're doing good work, but only picking on your boss, does that work if somebody's unjustly screaming at you because she or he's your boss? Can witnessing work? I said, it always does. It did for me. Well, what do you do? I said, huh? I worked in a clinic where the head of the clinic was as disturbed as the patients were. Very neurotic individual when I was there. And she felt very threatened by me because the work I was doing was as a meditation therapist, as a stress therapist, and many of the patients, it was an outpatient clinic, liked to attend the groups I offered because they enjoyed them and it was empowering for them. So they would sometimes stand out in the hall, which I guess was a threat to some of the other counselors and therapists. And she didn't like me very much. And she found any reason to come and try to bully me. But in those days, I was a yogi. I'm still a yogi, but I've already met Guruji. So I did what he always did when anybody provoked him at the ashram. I just said, I'm sorry this was so upsetting to you. Okay, I'll think about that. She didn't know what to do with it. Because I wasn't cowering. At the same time, I was being as polite as I could be. My quietness stopped her every time. She just went, what to do with this one? Like the other one with the skinny monk. Because she thought she could overpower me with her authority, with her intimidation. But my weapon was, I didn't really like that job. And I was kind of hoping that maybe she'd say, get up. I didn't want it. I didn't want the job. But if we need a job, and we have to have a job, then we put ourselves in a weakened position. But if, that's what he said, if you can accept the movement of life, what's being presented as an opportunity, as a direct teaching for you, as a possibility of change, then nothing bothers you. Nothing bothers you. And fortunately, I had a great teacher. One or two times I was there when someone came just to provoke him, just to bother. They would try to do it. And they would say, I think, you're not really a guru, you just came so that you didn't have to work in India, whatever they said. And he was still working in this country when he came. Or they would say something else, and Guruji would look so fascinated at the person. Thank you very much for calling that to my attention. I will add that to the other list of my weaknesses I'm working on. Thank you very much. And if you find any more, please inform. And he wasn't being facetious. He was interested in that. And he loved anything that broke into the routine. This was interesting. This is different. Someone challenging you. He said, I will think over that. You have a very excellent point. What is your name? Come often. Don't stay away so long. And I said, oh, this is a very good thing. But mainly I saw that he didn't care. Why didn't it disturb him? The man was interrupting. The man was being rude. He was insulting. Why did it have no effect on Guruji?
Because he was strong, he knew himself. He was at that presence.
Well, there was more than strength. What was it?
Acceptance.
He wasn't worried about what other people think.
Because you're right, he wasn't worried about others' insults or what they thought, because.
It was there.
And we have no desire, what does it mean?
Yeah.
There was no ego involved in that exchange. He didn't care whether men respected him or not. He didn't care whether the man was being bullied or intimidated. He didn't care. He wouldn't care if the whole room said he's right and walked out. He would say, my guru wants me to go back to India. That's what he would say. He accepted everything as an opportunity for some new reflection. He loved it. And he didn't identify with that which the man was criticizing. He knew he wasn't the personality. What could the man say? You're too short, you're too noisy, you're too wordy. He would say, this is a problem. I know, my mind likes to talk. You are right. I will try, but my mind will not like me trying to shut it up. Very powerful, my mind. He would talk like that. As if the mind, the personality, the body-mind entity, the ego, was something apart. And it is.
So what you're saying is you really have to let go of all your ego. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but who will be letting go of it? The ego will try to do it. Because the
Isn't
ego
that-
wants to be perfect.
That's extremely difficult, right?
Yes.
And you have to really, how do you get to that level?
Please, you spend 2 hours with me today. What would I say? What did I say in the afternoon? I said, on the mind level, we can't figure out anything. On the mind level, we can't drop anything because it's the ego dropping, because it has a desire to be desireless. Very, as you said, very tricky. So the only thing to do is step aside, outside of the body-mind entity, and become the witness as often as possible. Because it's in that witnessing state. By the way, that was an amazing statement by Krishnamurti in the beginning. He said, love was the death of every minute. And each death, that's in meditation, each death was the renewing of love. It was not attachment. It had no roots. That love was not an attachment, had no roots. That state of love flowered without cause, and it was a flame that burned away the borders, the carefully built fences of consciousness. It was beauty beyond thought. It was beauty beyond feeling. And it was not put together on a canvas. It's not beauty as we know it on a painting. It was not put together in words, as we find beauty in some books, in some talks. And it was not put together in marble, in statues. That's not the kind of beauty. He said it was beauty beyond thought and beyond feeling. Meditation at that here now, in that here now, was joy. And with it came benediction. What's the meaning of benediction? I know there's some Catholics in the room. What's the meaning of benediction?
Blessing.
It's grace. But the only way that can happen is to step aside from the ego, step aside from the conditioned individual personality. So you're looking with new eyes, clear eyes, untarnished eyes, uncontaminated eyes, the eyes, in quotes, the eyes of the witnessing eye. This was said not by Gurji in the 70s or 80s, said all the time by him. But I first came across it in the Bhagavad Gita, where they said we must move into the witnessing in order to connect again with the origin of our being. 5,000 years ago. And being told to us again. Any questions about this? Yes.
I was just going to comment, since you brought up Krishnamurti, I know that at one point he said that he never minded what happened. And he just reminded me of something I read that he said that.
Krishnamurti said he never
He
minded.
goes, people were asking him, how do you do this and how do you drop everything? He's like, I don't mind what happens. That's the difference.
I have to be careful. You can edit this tape, right? So there are times you can do that when we're in that witnessing state. But unfortunately, a book was written, there's usually a book, not one about me, that's good, but a book was written about Krishnamurti by someone who knew him very well. And he talked about times he lost his temper, or he did something that he regretted. So it's much better when the gurus are honest. They say, when I don't mind, that's when I'm able to do that. But there are times, because we need encouragement. As Louise said before, it's very hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard to remain a witness when the sword is over our head. That's the whole evening you've been talking about, this acceptance of what's happening, and to use it, to practice. Can we? Of course, if the sword's coming down, please stop. But don't take me literally. But the argument, when words are cutting through, words are cutting us. That's when we try to do it. We just watch, and we see some very interesting things. If we just watch effortlessly, we see that this loud bully, this one who's intimidating, she's a wreck. She's not calm, she's not clear, she can hardly control herself. She's in a rage, out of control. And that's not powerful energy. You can defeat such a person the way Krishnamurti said he did. I'm just saying to be careful of people who say, this is the way you do it, without saying it's not hard. It's some teachers, and Krishnamurti was one of them, he would say to a group, all of you without exception, live the way your parents told you to live. Live the way your teachers told you to live. All people do, and not me, I don't do this. And I said, you must do that some of the time. I'm just saying, we shouldn't put them up on pedestals, because our Guru is a great, great enlightened being. And we said, as long as we have a mind, we cannot be trusted. He said, love everybody, but trust nobody. I hope you heard that. Sergi said, love everybody, but trust nobody. Not even yourself. Except, he said, conditions, he said, except the enlightened or the approximately enlightened. Because they would never do anything unfair. They'd be afraid, the approximately enlightened, because they're moving towards enlightenment. But even if they're family members or yourself, if you're not enlightened or approximately enlightened, I hope, I won't even embarrass you, but I hope nobody here trusts yourself. That's a very foolish thing to do, because You know how many times you made a resolution. You promised yourself you would not do that again. And
But we can
you did.
trust our being, we can trust who we are, like if somebody is aggressive towards me, or I'm even kinder to them, even more so. Not that I respect them, but just because I don't have to change.
Then you must be among the approximately 11. But if you're not, oh, now she's going to go home. But if you're not always able to do that, and there are times you lose control, then you can't trust your being. You trust when you hear testimony from the gurus, from the scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita. You trust that if they just ask you to practice witnessing, you trust that they wouldn't lie to you. Why would they spend their life lying to us? They're telling out of their deepest experience and wisdom what will help us. The gurus are here to relieve us of suffering. They want to put an end to our suffering. And if they tell through their disciples and students, because he's not here anymore, he can only speak through his writings, Sri Ramananda. Rajneesh isn't here anymore. Ramana Maharshi, the great gurus, are not here at this point. So we go to their words, we go to their teachings, we go at this ashram. The teachers are here, telling you, reminding you what we learned, what he said. And we check each other, the teachers check each other, to make sure that indeed what our memory is correct. But he absolutely said, trust nobody, love everybody. Why? Because everybody has a mind. Virji chose, he was an avatar, he chose to take incarnation again. He said he's coming back 3 more times. He has unfinished business with some of his disciples. Coming back. But he chose to come back. He chose to remain with us after a massive stroke. That was the body was in a great deal of pain. He wasn't his old macho self. As the body became weak, he wasn't weak. But out of love, he could have left it, could have stopped eating and he would have left his body. But he kept eating, he kept taking care of the body because he said we weren't ready. That wasn't time for him to go. So instead of staying 3 years, which the doctor said was his limit, he stayed 10 years, active. He had programs every day. So it was moving for us, sacrifice for us. But he himself said, as long as I took this hard route, this hard part of the journey, and didn't remain in a cave and just enjoyed my enlightenment, but came to America and went through difficulties being in America, many challenges. He said, as long as I'm going to do that, he said, I'm going by hook or by crook to take you out of the suffering. And he did it very honestly, didn't fool us. He said that when I'm on the mind level, I behave like an ordinary person. Worse, he said, worse, because I just go like thunder and lightning. But within seconds it was over. Not with us. We became out of order. It lasted days and weeks. He broke us of that by insisting that we witness, that we meditate, and bring about those changes. So, any questions about this? This was very powerful tonight. I read it out loud this morning, and I always get excited. I've read it several times, but read it again, Elizabeth, and I was gone. If I become excited, I never become excited. But are there any questions? Krishna Devi is not here, is she? Are you Krishna Devi? I say that because Dinesh is wondering. Whenever I see Dinesh, I don't think Krishna's. Maybe he came to look and see if Krishna was. Anyway, are there any questions about that? Surat, we have to take that one.
Okay, yes.
Are there any questions about anything you heard tonight? How many of you, as Virgie would ask me this, how many of you do feel you heard something either tonight or in the afternoon that is of a transformative nature for you? That's great. It's very important to me because it means I should say with these readings that move me, because if they move me, they seem to move you.
Jen,
Is there something you'd like to share with everybody?
John,
Yes.
I was just wondering, regarding that situation where, somebody is, yelling at you or criticizing you, you're this, you're that. And there's one situation where maybe that issue is totally resolved in you and you don't react. It's not hitting any solid place in you because that's not your problem. You don't identify with it. But on the other hand, there are certain things where, you still have a lot of pain. It brings up a lot of pain and then or insecurity, then you are witnessing that. So it's a very deep, to continue witnessing even when discomfort is arising
What you're
within
saying,
you.
Karen, what you're saying is that we used to have very strong, let's say criticism, somebody yelling and criticizing us. And when we were children, when we were younger, we were very sensitive to that, especially if it's unjust criticism. If it goes on long enough, scar tissue is formed. The wound is healed, right? But now you're saying similar circumstances are occurring. Unjust criticism by somebody else, or the same person perhaps, but it formed a scar, it's healed. However, if a bang is felt right on that scar, and the identifications and the associations are exact, you will have the same reaction like Pavlov's dogs. You will have a conditioned response to that happening. The difference is, and sometimes, as Gurji said, sometimes his reaction was even more than a
Or
normal
it brings up a lot of, you become very confused because you're like, is that true?
Well, you become confused because that's how we were when that first betrayal came. When someone was criticizing us unjustly, undeservedly, they're criticizing, and they're doing it for self-serving reasons, or they're bullies. I dislike bullies. So it's not complicated. Somebody taps into my old wound, and one of my wounds was that I was brought up in a household where there was no praise, just criticism, all the time, no matter what you did, by one individual in the family. So years can go by, but then someone from this ashram, let's say, who has the same frequency as that family member, comes right in front of me and attacks unjustly, unfairly. I will get exactly the same reaction that I had when I was 5 years old. Because it's tapping right into the original pain, wound. The difference is, if you have been practicing stepping aside as the witness, by the way, there's a witnessing CD now that you can buy. There's somewhere here, I believe. It helps you to go through that process of my voice. But if you practice witnessing, especially when you're quiet, not in trouble, You just practice the art of witnessing. Just watching where your attention moves, and seeing that there is an entity that is apart from all that moves, all that changes. What happens is automatically, after the attack, maybe seconds later, minutes later, you find yourself witnessing, and you didn't plan to witness, but you're witnessing the reaction of your body. Because the first thing that happens to me when I'm criticized unjustly is I'm joking here. Because when I was a little girl, I wasn't allowed to yell back. I just had a ticket. I was told, you just, keep quiet when she talks to you like that. So the first feeling I had was like, I have a tight throat because I have so much to say. I want to cry. I was told not to cry either. Don't cry. So instantly all that comes back, and there's confusion on my part because at that moment I'm a little girl. However, the very next second Carmen, I'm saying, wow, that's that old choking feeling. I'm seeing it, I'm feeling it. The first thing you can witness is your body's reaction. That gives you the first clue that this is from the past. It's not from this. It couldn't possibly be from now, because you don't care about that person. The person who's criticizing you, you don't care about. But she reminds you of that other one, about whom you did care. You all understand that? It's remindful because of your reaction. The feeling is the same. The person is different. The issue, the condition is different. The feeling is the same. Karna, try it, you'll see. You don't have to be a genius to do this. You just, instead of remaining and thinking about the incident, just be with the incident as what's happening now, right now. That will instantly take you away from the memory, the thinking that you were doing that had you back in the past. You cannot be witnessing and judging at the same time. It's not possible. And how it works, I can tell. The same family member who was my nemesis, who didn't let me live and be free, visited me when she was much older, came to the house. And I was saying, this is not a good idea. I hadn't seen her for a long time. But she came to the house, not for any reason, but just to have a conversation, to see me again. She was curious. But this time I had met Virgie, and I understood about witnessing, stepping apart. And she came in, and the first thing I noticed, because you automatically witness when you're accustomed to it, she didn't stop talking. Nervous people, stressful people. And she said things like, is your son still short? My son was 9 years old. And I said, yeah, they're saying she's short. That's too bad. You should give him hormones. I don't know what she. And she was talking so fast that I couldn't help notice her lips were trembling. She was terrified of me. She'd been dreading coming, but her curiosity was too much. And I found myself saying, out of just compassion, I thought she was going to have a heart attack. I had never been able to see her because I was reacting so powerfully in the past with such fear and anger that I wasn't able to be aware. I wasn't able to see her. But I saw her that day and found myself saying, would you like a cup of tea and a cookie? So, I love it. love that. She said, this is a very nice place. It's very nice. You live near the river, yes. She said, well, I probably won't be coming again. Please bring me tea. And then saying, you still doing those crazy things, going to an usher, seeing a girl? I said, yes, I am. I was I'm a therapist by that time. I was doing anything to calm this patient down. For the very first time in my life, I was seeing her not as a bully, not as an enemy, not as someone who was disruptive in my life, but as a patient. It was clear she was a patient. And so I was reacting in that way. Anybody, Karen, who upsets you, continues to upset you, especially anybody in these teachings, you have to treat as a patient, not as somebody that you should be in reaction to. A therapist, a good therapist, by the way, can be yelled at, can be threatened, and never takes it personally. Always knows it has to do with the past of that person. It's, Gurdjieff said, it's not your fault. So the best thing to do is try as much as possible just to step outside of the whole drama and watch you in that drama and watch her or him in that drama. But the witness you can see is unaffected by it. You can enjoy the movie, you can cry during a movie, you can get a reaction of rage during a movie, but in the end it's just a movie. No matter how much you cried during that movie, no matter how much you empathize with the lead who was in a rage throughout the movie, you leave the movie and say, that was so good. But you cry, I know I only cried in very great films.
So take a deep breath. And now as you breathe out, release all the language, all the words. This will only be 60 seconds. So feel yourself letting go and opening up to this now. Feeling it, perceiving it, imbibing it. Sometimes it only takes 1 minute to reconnect with your real life, your real home. I am that I am. That is our home. Krishna Devi, would you lead us in our traditional prayer? Thank you, Krishna Devi. And if some of you are feeling very high, that you may need a designated driver, take 2 cookies. Chocolate chip is a great way to come back to earth.